Hey, my name is James Lucas, texture artist at Quixel. In this breakdown, I'll be going over how I created this Cyberpunk street in Unreal Engine 4, leveraging the power of Megascans. As a texture artist, I rarely get to create an environment, and this project was a great opportunity for me to challenge my skill set and grow as an artist. This was also my first time using Megascans extensively, and I wanted to see how fast I could build an environment with the library and seeing if working with pre-made assets would have any impact on my creative process or ownership of this project, as that's a common worry artists have when dealing with asset libraries. Needless to say, this project was a great learning experience for me, and I'm excited to share what I learned with you. Before giving you my conclusions around these questions, I'll guide you through the creation process of this scene, so sit tight and let's get started. To start off, I gathered a bunch of references of Japanese streets. Nothing special here, but I kept an eye out for interesting details that could be incorporated into this environment. My focus on this scene was mostly on lighting and composition, so I kind of kept those things in mind when looking for suitable references. The next step was a block out. I've opened Maya and I started playing with some basic shapes to get the general composition going. I knew I wanted a center focal point in the foreground and a secondary one in the background building, so imagining what this would look like with textures and meshes from the library really helped me experiment with lots of ideas without spending too much time on each iteration. For my focal point, I wanted a crater in the road, and instead of sculpting that, I actually just imported a rock from the Megascans library and did a boolean operation on the ground to create the base shape of my crater in no time. The next step was to import my blockout meshes into Unreal and set up my main camera angles. I imported my basic meshes from Maya into Unreal Engine. To start with, I'd like to focus on the main focal point of the scene. This will consist of the road material as well as numerous 3D scan meshes from Megascans placed within and around the crater. Before working on the scene structure, I did a quick lighting pass to get a good feeling of the mood I was trying to achieve, and then I started working on the main focal point. The first mesh to texture here was the road, and to do that I opened Quixel Bridge and then searched for asphalt. This gave me a wide range of options to choose from. I went with this fairly simple asphalt surface as it was good enough for my needs. I also used this rubble surface for the crater, and after downloading both, I selected them, then hit export to send them to Unreal. I wanted my asphalt to be wet, and to do that I just opened the material instance that was created by Bridge, tweaked the roughness value, and voila! The material parameters Bridge gives you when you export with it are incredibly useful, but as a side note, you can also use your own custom materials and Bridge will work with them just as seamlessly. Now back in Bridge, I wanted to have a nice 3D asset sitting in my crater, and this concrete barrier had a set of red stripes that gave it a really cool vibe, and so I exported it. The asset matched perfectly with my composition, so all I had to do was put it just at the right place, then import a few other construction debris and put them around the edge of the crater, which were really useful to enrich my focal point without too much noise. With my focal point looking mostly done, I stepped back a little and added a few concrete curbs in the background. You'll notice that I rotate and move them around just slightly enough to give them more variation. Details like this may seem trivial, but the real world is full of slight imperfections like this, and whether you're an environment or a texture artist, emulating these patterns in your art is essentially what makes your realistic environments truly stand out from the rest. Because I wanted to make use of the recent planar reflections in UE4 to get some really nice reflections from the adjacent buildings, I decided to do some vertex painted puddles on the road. Once again, this is a simple task as the default blend material from Bridge comes shipped with a bunch of liquid settings that allow me to take complete control of this process, adjusting colour, depth and normal intensity of my puddles, just to name a few. Using this technique, I can detail around my focal point more by painting in some crumbled asphalt, all controlled within the same blend material. I'm now getting some really nice and sharp reflections on the road, and this has also helped to break up any repetition I might have had previously. Next, I wanted to add some more detail and imperfections to the road. I make extensive use of scanned decals from within Bridge, once again exported with a single click. Back in Unreal, it's then as simple as dragging and dropping the decal material on my road surface, scaling and rotating into position, and adjusting the customizable parameters. I'll speed this process up as quite a lot of these high quality decals were used. This decal workflow was adopted throughout my entire scene on almost every 3D surface, and it truly sped up the detail process of my environment. The final step for the road was to scatter some 3D assets using the UE4 foliage painter. For this, I went back to Bridge and exported out some foliage, pebbles and general debris that might be found in such an environment. Once again, everything was completely set up for me automatically, and I could really focus on detailing the scene. These scatters helped me add the final touches to the road and aided in the depth and storytelling of the scene. For the roller door in the background, I actually used Quixel Mixer to create it instead of manually modelling the entire shape. The layer stack may look complex, but really it's just a bunch of surfaces and procedural layers that I moved, placed all over the door. This was a really interesting exercise as it combined procedural and scan workflows quite well, and once I was done with it, I sent the asset to Bridge with the export to library feature, and from there the asset went straight into Unreal. Once back in Unreal, I placed the newly exported surface onto my door geo using a parallax occlusion mapping material, and now I instantly had a detailed door in the scene. From there, I could adjust any material parameters such as offsets to ensure everything fits nicely within the environment. From there, I just started adding a few assets and surfaces here and there, starting with a bunch of modular pipes, then some hanging cables, garbage bags, and so on. The rest of the scene was fairly easy to work on, and I then spent most of my time playing with different surfaces or debris to get the right mood in my scene. All these details are unfortunately skipped too often, but they define your environment and are the best showcase of your discipline when given a complex project to work on. My colleague Josh Powers made an amazingly detailed post-apocalyptic environment, and I highly recommend you to check it out for more tips and tricks on environment detailing. Alright, I think that's about it. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll be available again on Friday 30th of August at 7 PM CET to answer any questions you may have and also dive deep into some aspects of the scene. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.